The sound of handcuffs ratcheting tight is usually the end of the story for a defendant in a courtroom. But in a Chicago district court, that sound marked the beginning of a nightmare for the person holding the badge. Officer Carla Beaumont walked into courtroom 302, convinced she was the law, ready to drag a man named Kendrick Vale into a cell for a crime he did not commit. She did not know that the judge on the bench had been watching her for months. She did not know the cameras were rolling, and she certainly did not know that in less than 20 minutes, the bailiff would be gripping her wrists. This is the story of how a corrupt badge met the iron gavel of justice. Kendrick Vale checked his watch. It was a brushed steel chronograph, a gift from his wife Maya when he had finally earned his license as a structural engineer. The hallways of the Cook County Circuit Court were already buzzing with the low-frequency hum of anxiety that always fills places where freedom is bargained for. Kendrick was not there for a crime. He was there for a zoning dispute. He was 42, dressed in a charcoal bespoke suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly, holding a leather portfolio filled with blueprints for a community center in the South Side. He was a man who built things, he fixed foundations, he did not break laws. But to Officer Carla Beaumont, who was currently leaning against the vending machine near the metal detectors, Kendrick Vale was not an architect. He was a target. Carla Beaumont had been with the force for years. She was a woman who wore her uniform like armor, but somewhere along the way the armor had rusted. She was known in the precinct as the Hammer, a nickname she adored, but one that her superiors used with a grimace. She had a reputation for closing cases, usually by finding the path of least resistance and bulldozing through it. To her, the badge was not a symbol of service. It was a VIP pass to do whatever she pleased. She watched Kendrick over the rim of her styrofoam coffee cup. She did not know him personally, but she knew the type, confident, well-dressed, walking like he owned the place. It irritated her. In Carla's world, people were supposed to look nervous around her. If they did not, it meant they were hiding something. Or worse, they thought they were better than her. "Hey, Kowski," Carla muttered to her partner, a rookie named Nolan Whitaker, who looked like he was barely out of the academy and terrified of his own shadow. "See that guy in the gray suit? The tall one?" Nolan squinted. "The lawyer?" "He ain't a lawyer," Carla scoffed, crushing the empty cup in her hand. "Lawyers don't carry portfolios like that. That's a drop bag." "A what?" "A drop bag, Nolan. Drugs, cash. Pick one." Carla pushed off the wall, hitching her duty belt up. "Let's go say hello." Kendrick was reviewing his notes on the structural integrity of the proposed community center when a shadow fell over his paperwork. He looked up to see a female officer standing too close, her hand resting casually but threateningly near her holster. "Can I help you, officer?" Kendrick asked, his voice calm, a deep baritone that usually commanded respect on construction sites. "ID," Carla said flatly. She did not ask. She demanded. Kendrick frowned. He knew his rights, but he also knew the reality of the situation. He was a black man in a courthouse hallway. Making a scene was rarely a winning strategy. He slowly reached into his inner jacket pocket. "Slowly," Carla barked, her hand snapping to her taser. Kendrick froze. "I am reaching for my wallet, officer, as you asked." He pulled out his ID and handed it to her. Carla snatched it, looking from the card to his face and back again. She was looking for the reason. A warrant, a suspension, a mismatched address. Anything to knock this man down a peg. "Kendrick Vale," she read aloud, making the name sound like an insult. "What's in the bag, Vale?" "Blueprints," Kendrick said. "I'm an architect. I have a hearing with the zoning board in courtroom 302. "Blueprints," Carla repeated, a smirk playing on her lips. "That's a new one. Turn around, hands on the wall." "Excuse me?" Kendrick's calm was beginning to fracture. "Am I being detained? What is the probable cause here?" "I said hands on the wall." Carla's voice rose, designed to draw attention, designed to humiliate. "You fit the description of a suspect involved in a smash and grab 2 blocks over. Tall, dark clothing carrying a bag." It was a lie. A lazy, transparent lie. The smash and grab call had described a teenager in a hoodie. Kendrick was a grown man in a 3-piece suit. "Officer," Kendrick said, planting his feet, "I am not turning around. I am due in court in minutes. If you want to arrest me, do it. But be prepared to explain to the judge why you arrested the lead architect on the city's new municipal project." Nolan, the rookie, stepped forward nervously. Carla, maybe we should check dispatch again. The description said—" "Shut up, Nolan," Carla hissed. She stepped into Kendrick's personal space, her nose inches from his tie. "You think a suit makes you untouchable? I can ruin your day, Vale. I can make you miss that hearing. I can book you for resisting disorderly conduct and obstruction before you can blink." "I'm sure you could," Kendrick said, his eyes hard. "But you're not going to." He turned his back on her and walked toward the double doors of the courtroom. It was the ultimate insult. He walked away. Carla stood there, her face flushing a deep, angry red. Her authority had been challenged in front of a rookie and a hallway full of onlookers. The vein in her forehead throbbed. "Oh, you made a mistake, buddy," she whispered to herself. She pulled out her radio but did not key the mic. She just held it, pretending. Then she looked at Nolan. "He assaulted me." Nolan's jaw dropped. "What?" "No, he didn't. He just walked away." "He brushed past me," Carla lied, her eyes manic. "That's assault on an officer. Come on, we're taking him down inside." "Carla, we can't. It's a courtroom." "It's my jurisdiction, Nolan. Follow me." Carla Beaumont marched toward the courtroom doors, fueled by ego and a complete lack of fear for the consequences. She had done this before. She would drag him out, cuff him, book him, and by the time the charges were dropped, he would have missed his hearing and spent a night in the cage. Lesson learned. She pushed open the heavy oak doors of courtroom 302. She had no idea that inside, sitting on the bench, was the Honorable Judge Harlan Voss. And Judge Harlan Voss was having a very bad morning. Courtroom 302 was a cavernous space, smelling of lemon polish and old paper. The air conditioning hummed, battling the Chicago summer heat. Judge Harlan Voss sat on the elevated bench, rubbing his temples. He was 60 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen every variation of human folly. He was known as a black-letter judge. He followed the law to the letter, and he had zero tolerance for theatrics. Currently, he was listening to a drone of arguments regarding property lines in the suburbs. He checked the docket. Next up was City Zoning Board versus Banks Construction. He was actually looking forward to it. He appreciated architecture and had heard good things about this Vale fellow. Kendrick Vale entered the courtroom quietly. He nodded respectfully to the bailiff, a large, stoic man named Carl, who had worked this room for years. Carl gave a subtle nod back. They knew the drill. Kendrick took his seat at the defense table, placing his portfolio down. He adjusted his tie, trying to shake off the adrenaline from the encounter in the hallway. He needed to be calm. He needed to be professional. The door banged open. It was not a respectful entrance. It was a breach. Officer Carla Beaumont strode down the center aisle, her boots clacking loudly on the parquet floor. Rookie Officer Nolan Whitaker trailed behind her, looking like he wanted to dissolve into the floorboards. The murmur in the courtroom died instantly. Even the lawyer currently speaking stopped mid-sentence. Judge Voss lowered his reading glasses and peered over the rim. "Officer, is there an emergency?" Carla ignored the judge for a split second, her eyes locked on the back of Kendrick's head. She marched right up to the railing separating the gallery from the well of the court. "Kendrick Vale!" Carla shouted. Kendrick closed his eyes for a second, inhaling deeply before turning around in his chair. Officer Beaumont, stand up, Carla commanded, unclipping her handcuffs. You're under arrest. The courtroom gasped. A collective intake of breath rippled through the gallery. Judge Voss slammed his gavel down. The crack was like a gunshot. Excuse me, officer. Carla looked up at the bench, annoyed at the interruption. Your Honor, I need to take this suspect into custody. It'll only take a minute. You are interrupting a session of the Circuit Court of Cook County, Voss said, his voice dangerously low. You do not burst in here and demand arrests. Who is this man? This is Kendrick Vale, Carla said, pointing a finger at him. He's a suspect in a robbery, and he just assaulted a police officer in the hallway. I'm taking him in. Kendrick stood up slowly. Your Honor, that is a lie. Shut up! Carla snapped at him, reaching over the bar to grab his arm. Bailiff, Judge Voss roared. Carl the bailiff moved with surprising speed for a man of his size. He stepped between Carla and Kendrick, blocking her reach. Officer, step back. Carla glared at Carl. Get out of my way, Carl. I'm doing my job. This guy thinks he can push a cop and walk away. Judge Voss leaned forward. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with static. Officer, approach the bench now. Carla huffed, rolling her eyes, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by the judge, and swung the gate open. She walked up to the bench, chewing gum she had not bothered to spit out. State your name and badge number, Voss demanded. Officer Carla Beaumont, badge 4922. Look, Judge, I don't want to disrupt your little zoning meeting, but this guy is dangerous. He fits the description of a smash-and-grab suspect, and when I tried to stop him, he physically shoved me and fled. Voss looked at Kendrick. Mr. Vale, is this true? No, Your Honor, Kendrick said, his voice steady, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. I was in the hallway reviewing my blueprints. Officer Beaumont approached me and demanded ID, which I provided. She claimed I fit a description. When I asked for probable cause, she threatened me. I told her I had a hearing and I walked away. I never touched her. He's a liar, Carla interjected quickly. They always lie, Your Honor. You know that. Voss looked at the rookie who was standing awkwardly by the gate. You there, the partner. Approach. Nolan froze. He looked at Carla, who shot him a warning glare that clearly said, keep your mouth shut. Then he looked at the judge, a man who had the power to end careers with a phone call. Nolan walked up to the bench, trembling. Name? Officer Nolan Whitaker, sir, Your Honor. Officer Whitaker, Voss said, leaning back. Did you witness the alleged assault? The room was silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Nolan looked at Kendrick, a man in a suit who looked terrified but dignified. He looked at Carla, his training officer, the woman who was supposed to teach him how to survive the streets. Nolan stammered. Speak up, son, Voss said, his voice softening just a fraction, offering a lifeline. The truth only hurts if you hide it. Nolan swallowed hard. He brushed past her, Your Honor. Carla smirked triumphantly, but Nolan added, his voice cracking. He didn't shove her. He just walked to the door. She was blocking him. Carla whipped her head around. Nolan, what the hell are you talking about? Silence. Voss slammed the gavel again. Officer Beaumont, if you speak out of turn one more time, I will have you sanctioned. Voss turned his gaze back to Carla. It was a cold, calculating look. Officer Beaumont, you claim he fits the description of a robbery suspect. What was the description? Tall, black male, dark clothing, carrying a bag, Carla recited confidently. I see, Voss said. He picked up a file on his desk. Mr. Vale is indeed tall. He is indeed black, and he is wearing a charcoal suit. However, I have the police scanner running in my chambers, officer. I listened to it during recesses. The call for the smash and grab described a suspect wearing a red hoodie and blue jeans. Is Mr. Vale wearing a red hoodie? Carla's confidence faltered for the first time. Suspects change clothes, Your Honor. He has a bag. The stolen goods could be in the bag. This bag? Kendrick lifted his leather portfolio. Open it, Carla demanded. I bet you won't open it." "He will do no such thing without a warrant," Judge Voss said. "Officer, you are fishing. You are fishing in my courtroom, and you are using my bailiff as bait. You have no probable cause. You have a fabricated assault charge that even your partner won't fully back up." "I have qualified immunity," Carla snapped, her temper taking the wheel. "And I have the authority to detain him for investigation. You can't tell me how to do police work, Judge. I'm taking him in. If you have a problem with it, call the captain." She turned around, dismissing the judge, and reached for her handcuffs again. She moved toward Kendrick. "Vale, hands behind your back now." "Officer Beaumont," Voss shouted, "do not touch him." "He's under arrest," Carla yelled back, grabbing Kendrick's wrist and twisting it. Kendrick winced, dropping his portfolio. Blueprints scattered across the floor. "Carl," Voss commanded. The bailiff stepped in, grabbing Carla's shoulder. "Carla, let him go." "Stop! Get your hands off me!" Carla screamed. She spun around and shoved the bailiff. It was not a hard shove, but it was a shove. She put her hands on an officer of the court. The entire room froze. Carla realized what she had done the moment her hands left Carl's chest. The silence was absolute. Judge Voss stood up. He was not yelling anymore. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Officer Beaumont, you just assaulted a court officer in full view of the bench." "He touched me first," Carla stammered, backing up. "I was effecting an arrest." "You were disobeying a direct order from a judge," Voss said, "and you have disrupted these proceedings to the point of chaos." Voss looked at the court reporter. "Is this all on the record?" "Yes, Your Honor," the reporter said, typing furiously. "Good." Voss looked at Carla. "Officer Carla Beaumont, I am holding you in direct criminal contempt of court. Carl, take her into custody." Carla laughed. It was a nervous, incredulous laugh. "You can't arrest me. I'm a cop in this room." "You are a defendant," Voss said. "Carl, cuff her." Carl pulled his handcuffs from his belt. "Turn around, Carla." "You've got to be kidding me." Carla sneered. She looked at Nolan. "Help me. They're arresting a police officer." Nolan stood still, his hands at his sides. He looked at the floor. "Nolan," she screamed. "Officer Whitaker is smart enough to know when to stay out of the way of a falling building," Voss said. "Now, Officer Beaumont, you can go quietly, or we can add resisting arrest to your list of problems today." Carla looked at Kendrick, who was rubbing his wrist. She looked at the judge. She looked at the gallery full of people holding up their cell phones, recording everything. Her face twisted into a mask of pure hate. "This is a mistake. A huge mistake. You're going to regret this, Voss. I know people. I know where you live." The threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. Judge Voss's eyes narrowed. "Did you just threaten a sitting judge?" "I'm just saying," Carla spat. "Karma is a—" "Indeed it is," Voss replied. "And it seems she has arrived early. Carl, take her to the holding cell. No bail until I review the footage from the hallway cameras." "What footage?" Carla froze. "The courthouse was retrofitted with high-definition audio-visual surveillance last week," Voss said with a dry smile. "Every inch of that hallway is recorded. If you lied about the assault, Officer Beaumont, contempt will be the least of your worries." Carla's face went pale. The color drained out of her cheeks as if someone had pulled a plug. Carl clicked the handcuffs onto Carla's wrists. The sound was crisp and loud. As she was led away, kicking and shouting obscenities, Kendrick Vale stood silently, watching the woman who tried to ruin his life get dragged out the very door she had marched in through. But this was not the end. This was just the spark that would ignite the powder keg. Carla Beaumont was not just a bad apple. She was part of a rotten orchard, and she was not going to go down alone. As the door swung shut, Judge Voss looked at Kendrick. "Mr. Vale, I apologize for the interruption. Please gather your papers." Kendrick knelt to pick up his blueprints. His hands were shaking slightly. He looked up at the judge. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me yet," Voss said, his face grim. "She has friends, powerful friends. This isn't over. And he was right. Within the hour, the precinct would be swarming the courthouse. The holding cell in the basement of the Cook County Courthouse was designed to strip away dignity. It was a concrete box painted a peeling shade of institutional gray, smelling of bleach and despair. For years, Officer Carla Beaumont had been the one throwing people into boxes like this. She had laughed at their pleas. She had mocked their tears. Now she was pacing the small floor, her unlaced boots scuffing the concrete. They had taken her belt, her badge, and her shoelaces. She felt naked. But more than that, she felt a burning, volcanic rage. "You can't do this!" she screamed at the camera mounted in the corner. "Do you know who I am? I am the police!" The only answer was the buzzing of the fluorescent light overhead. Upstairs, the atmosphere in Judge Harlan Voss's chambers was suffocating. Kendrick Vale sat in a leather guest chair, his hands gripping his knees. He had been released on his own recognizance for the zoning hearing, which was postponed, but he had not left the building. He could not. Outside the heavy mahogany doors of the judge's chambers, a storm was gathering. "You need to understand the gravity of this, Mr. Vale," Judge Voss said, pouring 2 glasses of water from a crystal carafe. He handed one to Kendrick. "You just witnessed a tectonic shift. Cops don't get arrested. Not like this, not immediately. The precinct is going to react like a kicked hornet's nest." "I just want to go home to my wife," Kendrick said, his voice weary. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," Voss said, sitting behind his massive desk. "But you are the witness. You are the victim. And right now you are the only thing standing between Officer Beaumont and a complete acquittal." Suddenly, the door to the chambers flew open without a knock. A man filled the doorway. He was massive, with a neck as thick as a tree trunk, and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite and left out in the rain. He wore a white shirt with gold captain's bars on the collar. Captain Harlan Whitaker, the head of the district, the butcher of State Street. Behind him were 2 other officers, hands on their belts, glaring into the room. "Get out," Judge Voss said, not even looking up from his paperwork. "We need to talk, Harlan," Whitaker rumbled, stepping inside and kicking the door shut behind him. He looked at Kendrick with pure disdain. "Who is this? The perp?" "This is the plaintiff," Voss corrected, his eyes finally meeting Whitaker's. "And his name is Mr. Vale, and you, Harlan, are trespassing in my chambers." Whitaker leaned over the desk, placing his thick, hairy knuckles on the wood. "Cut the crap, Harlan. You locked up one of my best officers, a veteran. You humiliated her in front of a courtroom full of civilians. You want to tell me what the hell you think you're doing?" "I'm upholding the law," Voss said calmly. "Something your officer forgot how to do." "She made a mistake," Whitaker spat. "She's passionate. She thought she saw a suspect. You don't throw a cop in a cage for being proactive. You release her right now. Drop the contempt charge, expunge the record, and we walk away. No harm, no foul." "No harm," Kendrick spoke up, surprising even himself. Whitaker whipped his head around. "Shut your mouth, pal. You're lucky you aren't in a cell right now for assaulting an officer." "He didn't assault anyone," Voss said, his voice rising. "And I have the witnesses to prove it." "Witnesses?" Whitaker laughed, a dry, humiliating bark. "You mean Nolan? The rookie? I just had a talk with Officer Whitaker outside. He's very confused. He thinks maybe he didn't see things clearly. Stress of the moment, you know. He's ready to write a new statement." Kendrick felt a chill run down his spine. This was how it worked. The pressure, the intimidation, the blue wall of silence closing ranks to protect their own, no matter the cost. Nolan was being threatened. "That sounds like witness tampering, Harlan," Voss said, his eyes narrowing. "It sounds like police work," Whitaker countered. "Look, we have to work together in this city. You need us to bring you cases. We need you to sign warrants. You start a war with the district and suddenly maybe your paperwork gets lost. Maybe the bailiffs get sick. Maybe a protection detail for judges gets delayed." It was a naked threat. Judge Voss stood up slowly. He was half Whitaker's size, but in that moment he looked 10 feet tall. Are you threatening a sitting circuit court judge in his own chambers, Captain? I'm just telling you how the world works, Whitaker sneered. Now give me Beaumont. Voss reached into his desk drawer. Whitaker flinched, his hand twitching toward his waist, but Voss only pulled out a small black flash drive. You think this is my first rodeo, Harlan? Voss asked quietly. I knew you'd come. I knew you'd squeeze the rookie. That's why minutes ago I had the court technician download the security footage from the hallway and the courtroom. I have already emailed copies to the state attorney's office, the FBI Civil Rights Division, and the Chicago Tribune. Whitaker's face went from red to a sickly shade of purple. You leaked evidence to the press. It's public record, Voss smiled thinly. And the video is very clear. It has audio, Harlan. High-definition audio. It catches Officer Beaumont admitting to Nolan that she fabricated the assault. It catches her calling Mr. Vale a target before she even approached him. It's not a mistake. It's a framing. Whitaker stared at the flash drive. The veins in his neck were throbbing. He knew what a video like that would do. In the current political climate, it would not just fire Beaumont. It would trigger an audit of the entire precinct. It would end careers. You're bluffing, Whitaker whispered. Check the news, Voss said, pointing to the TV mounted on the wall. Whitaker grabbed the remote and clicked it on. A breaking news banner flashed across the screen. Local judge orders arrest of officer in courtroom drama. The reporter was already speaking. Sources say the video evidence contradicts the police report entirely. Whitaker dropped the remote. He looked at Kendrick, then at Voss. The power dynamic had shifted. The bully had been punched in the nose. This isn't over, Whitaker hissed. You watch your back, Vale. You watch your back, Judge. Accidents happen. Get out of my chambers, Voss ordered, before I have the federal marshals remove you. Whitaker turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the framed diplomas on the wall rattled. Kendrick let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Thank you, Judge. You saved me. I bought us time, Voss said, sinking back into his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. But Whitaker is right about one thing. This is war, and in a war the first casualty is the truth. We need to make sure your record is spotless, Mr. Vale, because they are going to tear your life apart looking for dirt. Kendrick nodded. My life is clean. I build libraries and schools. I have nothing to hide. Everyone has something, Voss murmured. Let's hope yours isn't enough to bury you. Hours later, Kendrick was sitting in a small coffee shop blocks from the courthouse. He was not alone. Sitting across from him was Marcus Delaney, a high-powered civil rights attorney who had been recommended by Kendrick's wife, Maya. Marcus was a sharp-looking man with wire-rimmed glasses and a mind like a steel trap. He was scrolling through a tablet, watching the leaked courtroom footage. This is gold, Kendrick, Marcus said, shaking his head in disbelief. I mean absolute gold. She assaulted the bailiff on camera. She admitted to profiling you. Judge Voss is a hero for locking her up. Captain Whitaker threatened us, Kendrick said, sipping black coffee to keep his hands from shaking. He said accidents happen. Whitaker is a dinosaur, Marcus said dismissively, though his eyes were serious. He's trying to scare you, but we have a problem. What problem? The video cuts off, Marcus said, tapping the screen. See here? This is the feed Voss released. It shows the courtroom. It shows the arrest. But the hallway footage, the part where she stops you, it's grainy, and the audio is garbled. Kendrick frowned. Voss said the audio was clear. Voss was bluffing Whitaker. Look at this. He turned the tablet to Kendrick. The hallway camera is an old model. No audio. Without audio, they can claim you were being belligerent. They can claim you said something threatening. It becomes a he said, she said regarding the initial stop. If they can justify the initial stop, they can argue everything that happened in the courtroom was the result of you resisting a lawful order. Kendrick felt a pit open in his stomach. So if they prove she had a right to stop me, her arresting me becomes valid. Technically, yes. Or at least it muddies the water enough to get her a plea deal and keep her badge. We need to prove she had malicious intent before she even spoke to you." Kendrick rubbed his temples. "There was a vending machine." "What?" "In the hallway," Kendrick said, closing his eyes, remembering the scene. "She was leaning against a vending machine. She was talking to the rookie. I saw her crush a cup." Marcus leaned forward. "So?" "I'm an architect, Marcus. I did the structural retrofit for the annex next door years ago. I know the electrical layouts. That vending machine isn't just a snack dispenser. It's a modern, smart vendor. It has a camera for transaction security, and it has a microphone for voice-activated assistance for the visually impaired." Marcus's mouth fell open. "Are you telling me the soda machine might have recorded their conversation?" "It's on a separate circuit," Kendrick said, his engineer brain taking over. "It's not connected to the courthouse security grid. It's owned by a private vendor. The police wouldn't think to wipe it because they don't own it." Marcus slammed his hand on the table, grinning. "Kendrick, you're a genius. If we can get that data, we can hear exactly what she told the rookie before she stopped you. But we have to move fast. If Whitaker figures this out, that machine will have a malfunction within the hour." "Who owns the machines?" Kendrick asked. Marcus was already typing on his phone. "A company called Vendratech, based in Joliet. I'm calling a judge for an emergency preservation order right now. You need to go to the courthouse annex and just watch that machine. Don't touch it. Just make sure nobody else does." "I can't go back there," Kendrick said. "The cops will arrest me on sight." "Not if you have an escort," a voice said from behind them. They turned to see Carl the bailiff. He was out of uniform, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, but he still looked like a tank. "Carl?" Kendrick asked. "What are you doing here?" "Judge Voss sent me," Carl rumbled. "He figured you might need some backup. He's stuck doing paperwork on Beaumont, but he told me, 'Carl, go make sure Mr. Vale doesn't fall down any stairs.'" Kendrick felt a surge of gratitude. "Carl, we need to get to the vending machine on the 3rd floor." "Then let's go," Carl said. "I'm technically on lunch break and I hate bullies." The return to the courthouse was tense. Kendrick, Marcus, and Carl entered through the side annex doors to avoid the media circus growing at the front steps. They made their way to the 3rd floor. The hallway was eerily quiet. The yellow caution tape from the earlier incident was still flapping near the courtroom doors. And there it was. The vending machine, a glowing monolith of sugar and caffeine. "It's still plugged in," Kendrick whispered. "Okay," Marcus said on the phone. "I have the Vendratech legal department on the line. They can access the cloud storage remotely, but they need the serial number on the back of the machine." Carl stepped forward. "I got it." He effortlessly grabbed the massive machine and tilted it forward as if it were made of cardboard. "Read it out." Kendrick squinted at the silver tag. "VT 499 2024 CI. "Got it," Marcus said into the phone. "Did you hear that?" "Yes." "Lock it down. Send the file directly to my secure server." "Yes." "Now." Suddenly, the elevator doors at the end of the hall dinged open. Officer Nolan Whitaker stepped out. He looked pale, sweating profusely. Behind him was a man in plain clothes wearing a utility vest and carrying a tool bag. Nolan froze when he saw Kendrick, Carl, and the lawyer standing around the vending machine. "Hey!" Nolan shouted, his voice cracking. "Step away from the machine." "Private property," Marcus shot back, holding up his phone. "We're just buying a Snickers, officer. Is that a crime?" The man in the utility vest looked at Nolan. "You said the machine was broken, officer. You said I needed to pull the hard drive." Kendrick looked at Nolan. The rookie had been sent to destroy the evidence. Whitaker must have realized the blind spot. Or maybe Carla remembered the machine. "It is broken," Nolan lied, reaching for his radio. "This area is a crime scene. Clear out." Carl set the machine down with a heavy thud. He crossed his arms. "The crime scene tape is over there, Nolan. This is a public hallway, and this technician isn't touching anything until I see a work order." "Carl, move!" Nolan pleaded, his eyes darting around. "Please, you don't want to be involved in this. Whitaker is on a warpath." "I'm already involved," Carl said sadly. "You're a good kid, Nolan. Don't do this. Don't destroy evidence for her. She wouldn't spit on you if you were on fire." Nolan hesitated. He looked at the machine, then at Kendrick. "The file is downloading," Marcus whispered to Kendrick. 50%. "Officer," Kendrick said, stepping forward. "I heard you in court. You wanted to tell the truth. I saw it in your face. Don't let them turn you into a criminal. If that tech touches this machine, you are an accessory to felony destruction of evidence. Is Carla Beaumont worth prison?" Nolan's hand hovered over his radio. He was shaking. "Just let the tech do his job," Nolan whispered. "Please." 70%, Marcus muttered. "No," Carl said firmly. The elevator dinged again. This time it was not a rookie. Captain Harlan Whitaker stepped out, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. He took in the scene instantly. The lawyer, the phone, the vending machine. He knew exactly what was happening. "Seize that phone!" Whitaker roared, pointing at Marcus. "Arrest them all!" The 2 officers rushed forward. "Upload complete!" Marcus shouted, hitting the send button just as an officer tackled him. The phone skidded across the floor. Carl stepped in front of Kendrick, putting his hands up. "Captain, this is a mistake." "Cuff the bailiff too!" Whitaker screamed, his face a mask of fury. "Obstruction of justice!" Chaos erupted in the hallway. Kendrick was shoved against the wall. Carl was wrestling with 2 cops. Marcus was pinned to the floor. "You think you're smart?" Whitaker walked up to Kendrick, grabbing him by the lapels of his suit. "You think some cloud file is going to save you? I run this building." Whitaker reached into his pocket and pulled out a taser. He pressed it against Kendrick's chest. "Resisting arrest," Whitaker growled. Zap. Kendrick's world went white, then black. He crumpled to the floor, convulsions racking his body. "Take them to the precinct," Whitaker ordered, standing over Kendrick's twitching body. "Not the holding cells here. Take them to the district. We'll process them there." He looked at Nolan, who was staring in horror. "Nolan, smash that vending machine. I want the hard drive." As Kendrick was dragged away, fading in and out of consciousness, he saw Nolan pick up a fire extinguisher. He saw the rookie raise it over the glass front of the machine, but Kendrick smiled because Whitaker was too late. The file was in the cloud, and Marcus Delaney had sent it to everyone. The war had just gone nuclear. Consciousness returned to Kendrick Vale in jagged, painful waves. The smell of stale coffee and ozone filled his nose. He tried to move his arm, but metal clinked against metal. He was handcuffed to a steel table in a room that was far too familiar to anyone who watched crime dramas, but terrifyingly real to anyone living it. He was in the box, the interrogation room at the district precinct. His chest ached where the taser prongs had hit him. He looked up. Captain Harlan Whitaker was sitting across from him, cleaning his fingernails with a small pocket knife. The casual violence of the gesture was intentional. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Vale," Whitaker grunted. "I want my lawyer," Kendrick croaked. His throat was dry. "Your lawyer is currently being processed for assaulting a police officer," Whitaker said, not looking up. "And your friend Carl, the traitor? He's in the drunk tank with some very unfriendly individuals who don't like bailiffs." "You can't do this," Kendrick said, fighting the panic rising in his chest. "People saw you take us." "People see what they want to see," Whitaker said. He stood up and tossed a file on the table. "Here is how this goes. You sign this statement. It says you became violent at the courthouse. It says you and your lawyer conspired to destroy private property, the vending machine. And when officers intervened, you resisted. You sign it, you plead to a misdemeanor, and you go home to your wife. And if you don't, then we find drugs in your car. We find child pornography on your work laptop. We bury you so deep that by the time you dig yourself out, your wife will have left you, your license will be revoked, and you'll be an old man." Kendrick stared at him. The corruption was so absolute, so casual. It was breathtaking. "You're terrified," Kendrick whispered. Whitaker stiffened. "Excuse me?" "You're terrified," Kendrick repeated, his voice gaining strength. You didn't book us at the courthouse because you don't control the judges there. You brought us here because this is your castle. But the drawbridge is down." Captain Whitaker leaned in, his face inches from Kendrick's. "I am the law in this district." Knock, knock, knock. The door opened. It was a sergeant looking pale. "Captain, you need to see this." "I'm busy," Whitaker snapped. "Captain, it's the news," the sergeant insisted. "Channel 5 and Channel 7 and CNN." Whitaker frowned. He marched out of the room, leaving the door ajar. Kendrick strained to listen. In the bullpen, the large television screens were flashing red banners. Breaking news, Chicago police scandal. The audio from the TV drifted into the interrogation room. It was the clip, the vending machine clip. The quality was crystal clear. Carla Beaumont's voice rang out through the station, undeniable and damning. "See that guy? The tall one. Lawyers don't carry portfolios like that. Let's go say hello. I can make you miss that hearing. He ain't a lawyer. Just find a reason, Nolan. Pick one." Then the rookie's voice. "Carla, maybe we should check dispatch." And Carla again. "Shut up. He's a target. I don't like the way he walks. We're taking him down." The silence in the precinct was deafening. Every officer, every clerk, every detective stopped what they were doing. They looked at the screen. Then they looked at Whitaker. Whitaker stood frozen. The timestamp on the video showed it had been uploaded minutes ago. It had already been viewed millions of times. Then the news anchor spoke. "We have also received disturbing footage of a highly decorated captain tasing a suspect who appears to be surrendering. This footage was live-streamed from the attorney's phone seconds before his arrest." Whitaker felt the blood drain from his face. He had not realized Delaney was live-streaming. He thought he was just uploading a file. The phone on the sergeant's desk rang. Then another. Then the main switchboard lit up like a Christmas tree. "Captain," the sergeant whispered, "it's the mayor's office on line 1, the police superintendent on line 2, and internal affairs is in the lobby." Whitaker looked around the bullpen. The eyes of his officers were changing. Fear was replaced by self-preservation. They were backing away from him. "Lock the doors," Whitaker ordered, his voice trembling with manic energy. "Sir." "I said lock the damn doors!" Whitaker screamed, pulling his service weapon from its holster. "Nobody comes in! Nobody goes out! This is my house!" "Captain, you can't," Whitaker roared. The sergeant hesitated, then ran to the front entrance, but he did not lock it. He unlocked it. "Traitor!" Whitaker raised his gun. Suddenly a siren wailed right outside the building. Not a police siren. It was the deeper, guttural whoop-whoop of federal vehicles. Kendrick, sitting in the interrogation room, heard the chaos. He allowed himself a small, grim smile. The karma was not just hitting back. It was bringing a sledgehammer. The street outside the district precinct looked like a war zone, but instead of soldiers, it was a sea of media vans, protesters, and a phalanx of black SUVs with government plates. Special Agent Laura Cross stepped out of the lead SUV. She adjusted her windbreaker, the yellow letters FBI emblazoned on the back. She was a woman who ate corruption for breakfast. She had taken down cartels and mob bosses. A crooked police captain was just a light snack. She grabbed a megaphone. "This is Special Agent Cross with the Federal Bureau of Investigation." Her voice boomed, bouncing off the brick facade of the precinct. "Captain Harlan Whitaker, you are surrounded. We have federal warrants for your arrest along with Officer Carla Beaumont and Officer Nolan Whitaker. Come out with your hands up." Inside the precinct, the atmosphere was poisonous. Whitaker had barricaded himself in the main bullpen, pacing like a caged tiger. Most of the other officers had fled or were hiding in the locker rooms, unwilling to go down with the ship. But Whitaker still had leverage. He had the prisoners. He stormed back into the interrogation room. He looked wild, his tie undone, sweat pouring down his face. "Get up," Whitaker ordered Kendrick. "Is it over?" Kendrick asked calmly. It's over when I say it's over, Whitaker spat. He unlocked Kendrick's handcuffs from the table, but kept them on his wrists. He grabbed Kendrick by the collar and dragged him into the hallway. He marched Kendrick to the front of the station, using him as a human shield. "Open the blinds!" Whitaker shouted to the empty room. When no one moved, he fired a shot into the ceiling. Dust rained down. A young officer, terrified, crawled over and yanked the blinds of the front window open. Outside, the crowd gasped. They could see Whitaker holding a gun to Kendrick's head. "Back off!" Whitaker screamed at the glass, or the architect dies. Agent Cross raised her hand, signaling the tactical team to hold fire. Snipers on the roof of the opposite building adjusted their scopes, but the angle was bad. Whitaker knew the blind spots. "Whitaker," Cross shouted, "there is no way out of this. You're making it a federal capital offense. Let him go." "I want a helicopter," Whitaker yelled. The cliché sounded ridiculous even to his own ears, but he was operating on pure panic. "I want a flight out of here, and I want Beaumont released from the courthouse." Inside the station, from the shadows of the hallway leading to the holding cells, a figure emerged. It was Nolan, the rookie. He was holding his service weapon, but it was pointed at the floor. He looked at Whitaker. Then he looked at Kendrick. He saw the terror in Kendrick's eyes, but also the resolve. "Oh, Captain," Nolan said, his voice shaking. Whitaker whipped his head around, keeping the gun pressed to Kendrick's temple. "Nolan, get over here! Cover the back door!" "No," Nolan said. "What did you say to me?" "I said no." Nolan stepped into the light. Tears were streaming down his face. "I can't do this anymore. We're the bad guys, Captain. We're the bad guys." "I am protecting this precinct," Whitaker roared. "I am protecting you." "You're protecting yourself," Nolan said. He raised his gun. His hands were trembling violently. "Put the gun down, Captain. Let him go." "You don't have the guts, rookie," Whitaker sneered. "You're weak. Carla was right about you." "Maybe," Nolan sniffed, "but I'm not a criminal." "Drop the weapon, Nolan, or I blow this guy's brains out and then I kill you." Whitaker pressed the barrel harder against Kendrick's skull. Kendrick winced, but did not make a sound. Time seemed to slow down. Kendrick looked at Nolan. He did not see a cop. He saw a kid who had made a terrible mistake and was trying to find a way back. "Do the right thing," Kendrick whispered. Nolan took a deep breath. He tightened his grip on his pistol, but he did not shoot Whitaker. He knew he might miss and hit Kendrick. Instead, Nolan turned his gun toward the front window, the large plate glass window separating them from the FBI, and fired 3 shots. Crash! The glass shattered into 1,000,000 diamonds. The barrier was gone. "Breach, breach, breach!" Agent Cross screamed. Before Whitaker could react to the shattering glass, a flashbang grenade sailed through the open window and detonated in the center of the room. Boom! A blinding white light and a concussion wave knocked everyone to the floor. Kendrick fell hard, his ears ringing. Whitaker staggered back, blinded, firing his gun wildly into the air. Federal agents swarmed through the window like a colony of black ants. "Federal agents! Drop it! Drop it!" Whitaker, disoriented and blind, tried to raise his weapon toward the voices. Thwack! 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 3 non-lethal beanbag rounds hit Whitaker in the chest and stomach. He folded like a lawn chair, gasping for air, dropping his gun. Agents were on him in a second, zip-tying his hands behind his back. Another team moved to Kendrick. "Mr. Vale, are you hit?" Agent Cross was there, cutting his cuffs. I'm okay," Kendrick stammered, coughing in the smoke. "My friends, Marcus, Carl, they're in the back." "We have a team securing the back now," Cross said. She helped him stand. Kendrick looked across the room. Whitaker was being dragged out, screaming obscenities, and in the corner, sitting on the floor amidst the broken glass, was Nolan. He had holstered his weapon and put his hands on his head, waiting to be arrested. Kendrick walked over to him, his legs shaky. Agent Cross moved to intercept, but Kendrick held up a hand. He looked down at the rookie. "You broke the glass," Kendrick said. Nolan looked up, his eyes red. "I couldn't shoot him, but I could let the good guys in." "You saved my life," Kendrick said. "I helped ruin it first," Nolan replied bitterly. "Yeah?" Kendrick nodded. "You did, and you're going to have to pay for that. But you saved it in the end." Agent Cross stepped in. "Officer Whitaker, you are under arrest for conspiracy and obstruction of justice." As they cuffed Nolan, he did not fight. He looked relieved. Kendrick walked out of the shattered front of the precinct. The cool Chicago air hit his face. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Thousands of people were cheering. He saw Maya, his wife, running through the police line, ducking under the tape. She collided with him, sobbing, nearly knocking him over. "I got you," she cried. "I got you." "I'm here," Kendrick whispered, burying his face in her hair. Marcus Delaney and Carl were let out a moment later. Marcus looked disheveled, his suit torn, but he was grinning like a maniac. Carl looked bored, as if he dealt with corrupt precinct sieges every day. "Did we win?" Marcus asked, adjusting his crooked glasses. Kendrick looked at the precinct, now swarming with feds seizing computers and files. He looked at Whitaker being shoved into the back of a van. "We won the battle. Now we have to win the war in court because the arrest was just the beginning. The trial of the century was about to start, and Carla Beaumont and Harlan Whitaker weren't going to go down quietly. They had secrets and they were ready to burn the whole city down to save themselves." Months later, the trial of the people versus Beaumont and Whitaker gripped Chicago like a storm. Every seat in the courthouse was filled. Kendrick Vale sat in the front row beside Maya. No longer an accused man, but a witness to truth. Carla Beaumont looked nothing like the Hammer anymore. Her confidence had faded, replaced by fear. Captain Whitaker sat beside her, thin and hollow-eyed. The final blow came when Nolan Whitaker took the stand in an orange jumpsuit. His voice was calm. "She said Vale was a target," he testified. "Not because he was guilty, because she wanted power." Silence followed his words. After days of deliberation, the verdict arrived. Guilty on every count. Carla collapsed in tears. Whitaker stared ahead, defeated. Justice had finally spoken. Months later, Carla was sentenced to years. Whitaker received years without parole. As she was led away, Carla spat. "I hope you're happy." "I'm safe," Kendrick replied. "That's enough." With a historic settlement, Kendrick founded a legal aid center in South Chicago. Years later, standing before thousands, he spoke calmly. "They tried to take my freedom, but truth doesn't break. It builds." At 9 sharp, he checked his watch. This time, nothing stood in his way. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a corrupt system crumbled, because one man refused to turn around and put his hands on the wall. Kendrick Vale proved that even when the odds are stacked against you, the truth and a little bit of high-tech thinking can bring down giants. Carla Beaumont and Captain Whitaker thought they were the law, but they learned the hard way that no one is above it. If this story made your blood boil, or made you cheer for justice, hit that like button right now. It helps get this story out to more people. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had a run-in with someone on a power trip? How did you handle it? Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story of karma hitting back hard. Stay safe, know your rights, and see you in the next.